10 years ago, a 99-floor black tower tore its way out of the ground in the middle of Seoul. And it wasn't alone. 100 identical towers erupted in the biggest cities on Earth, all on the same day, each one crawling with monsters. But the people who climbed those floors and made it back out came home rich. Overnight, the tower became the whole world's get-rich dream. Park Se-Jun was a broke part-timer who couldn't even scrape together the money for a ticket inside. Then, one day, the tower reached out and took him anyway, sucking him in through thin air. But he didn't wake up as a warrior or a mage. He woke up lost and alone, stranded on a floor no map had ever charted. So while every other awakened human fights monsters for treasure, Se-Jun did the one thing nobody in this death trap ever tried. He started to farm magic crops that refill your mana and melt away fat. And 150 days later, the weakest man in the tower has quietly become its most valuable supplier. This is solo farming in the tower. Let's get into it. What's up, everyone? And welcome back to Apex Manhwa, your home for handcrafted manhwa recaps. If you enjoy the video, do me a quick favor, smash that like button, hit subscribe so you never miss a recap, and drop a comment telling me what you think. I read every single one. All right, let's get into it. Somewhere deep inside the tower, a talking merchant cat waves down a crowd of humans. Come here for a sec, it calls. You have got to check out the good stuff. And the good stuff turns out to be, of all things, a cherry tomato. The crowd is baffled. They were expecting a legendary weapon, not a vegetable, until they opened the status window. This is no ordinary tomato. It is a magical cherry tomato that restores your mana when you eat it. It even burns away body fat, and it costs just half a tower coin each. In a tower where everything is life or death expensive, that is a miracle in a bite. The crowd loses it. I'll buy 200, one shouts. No, 300. Give me everything you've got. The whole stock sells out in seconds. Where did you even get these? They demand. Who on earth is making them? The cat just grins and gives the only answer it ever gives. That's a secret. Later, the little merchant returns home with a fat pile of tower coins, boasting that it's sold out again. And its boss barely looks up. Already back. Take a rest. But the boss has no time for rest. He wants to earn more, and fast. His name is Park Se-Jun. It has been 150 days since he got lost in here, and his class is not warrior or mage. It is tower farmer. And this is the story of how a completely ordinary man survived being lost inside the tower. To understand it, we have to go back 10 years. On an ordinary day in Seoul, a 99-floor black tower appeared in the middle of Gangnam, and 100 more rose across the world at the very same moment. Then people began stepping out through its walls. They'd been swallowed by a black hole, they said, and woke up on the tower's first floor. Inside, you're forced to awaken and pick a role, warrior or magician, and fight the monsters that guard each floor. The awakened can walk in and out freely. Everyone else has to buy a ticket just to enter, and that ticket is brutally expensive. Because no one knows why the towers came, but everyone knows one thing for certain. Climb high enough, and you come out rich. So the price of a ticket keeps climbing, from 150 million won toward 200. In Park Se-Jun, after tuition, rent, and interest, he has saved about 12 million won. At this rate, he wonders if he'll ever afford a ticket at all. Still, he refuses to give up. If he could just clear the tower, he dreams he'd get rich, join a top guild, maybe even propose to his favorite idol, Sarah of the Moonlight Fairy. And then, right in front of him, the air itself tears open. It's the vanishing, the exact phenomenon that once sucked in the very first awakened. Most people would run. Se-Jun throws his arms wide open. Black hole, he yells, take me in. I'm ready to risk my life to climb this tower. When the hole starts shrinking away, he panics and forces himself in before the chance is gone. And when he comes to, his head still spinning, one day's thought surfaces. Did I actually make it into the tower? Everyone knew the Black Tower as a spacious, shining palace, packed with items and potions you could buy on the shopping floors. They said the first floor held the all-important training ground, because to survive in the tower you had to be strong enough to fight the monsters. That was what everyone said. But Se-Jun roamed the cave for a whole day and found no exit. No training ground, no store, nothing. He screamed for help until his voice gave out, and still there wasn't a single soul around. The horrible truth finally settled in. Had he somehow gotten lost? His phone alarm buzzed at 6. There was no network, but the clock was accurate, and it told him a full day had already passed in here. Starving, he took stock of everything he had. 1 bottle of water, 27 cherry tomatoes, 10 green onions, 7 sweet potatoes, and a single washed apple. He decided to start with the apple. 1 bite, and his eyes went wide. It was unbelievably sweet, the best apple he had ever tasted in his life. Still, 1 apple was never going to be enough. How long? He wondered, was he supposed to stay down here? He had to find a way out before the food ran out. He counted his supplies and did the grim math on how long he could last. Panic hit hard. No, he refused to die like this. Getting into a tower had been his lifelong dream, and he wasn't going to rot away in a cave. So he made a plan. He'd eat the green onion leaves and plant the roots, so a few tomatoes and sweet potatoes, and keep the rest as food. If farming was his only option, then he would farm. Then a roar tore through the dark. A monster? But he'd been told monsters didn't exist on the first floor. The moon turned strange and blue, and out of the light came something impossible. A black dragon, terrifying and beautiful, before everything went dark. When he finally came to, he was stunned. He had passed out cold for 2 whole days. Aching all over, he stumbled onto something that made no sense. A towering plant that turned out to be one of his green onions, grown enormous. It had to be the tower's power. He remembered a documentary about how plants change shape depending on where they grow, and he was certain some force here had supercharged his crops. Sure enough, the others had exploded too. He counted them in disbelief. 52 giant green onions. He tasted his first harvest and nearly hit the roof. Blazingly, absurdly spicy, far hotter than any onion should be, yet strangely it didn't hurt his stomach at all. Piecing things together, he recalled the phenomenon where the sun hides behind the moon on a floor. They called it the blue moon. But the blue moon only happened on the 10th floor, and the dragon had been no illusion. Nothing anyone had ever recorded matched this place. He'd gotten lost on a floor even the top-ranked hunters had never reached. Then something new appeared, hopping through the cave. A rabbit. Was that a monster too? Instead of running, he offered it food. "Here you go," he said, holding out a piece of his harvest. The rabbit devoured it happily. "Do you like it?" He grinned. "Have as much as you want, I've got plenty." And then a second rabbit came bounding in to join the first. "Are you two perhaps married?" he wondered, as his lonely cave suddenly started to feel a little less lonely. Watching the rabbit couple fuss over each other, Se-Jun caught himself smiling. They really were a great couple, and somewhere along the way, he'd stopped asking how any of this had happened. When the little rabbits made it clear they wanted to move into the cave with him, he just blinked. "You want to live in the cave?" He caved almost instantly, muttering a defeated "UGH, okay," as if he'd had any real chance of saying no. Still, he tried to hold a line. "Nothing's free. I'll think about it if you help me with the farm." All they had to do, he explained, was cut the green onions. When one nuzzled him with impossibly soft fur, his resolve crumbled entirely. "It feels like I'm being controlled, but—" He sighed, already knowing he'd lost. Then something practical caught his eye. "By the way, those things you're carrying, those are items, right?" The husband rabbit's little spray bottle, it turned out, poured out unlimited water, a genuine magical tool. And the wife rabbit seemed to have some kind of magic pocket, endlessly producing exactly the farming tools they needed. "I'm jealous," he admitted. "Wish I had equipment like that." He put them to work and checked the results. The green onions were cut and drying, though the sweet potatoes still showed no changes at all. The cherry tomatoes, though, had sprouted noticeably bigger. "They're growing so quickly. Is it because of the rabbits?" He looked down at his tiny farm hands with something like pride. "You passed," he declared. They were officially hired. What came next left him speechless. The rabbits had somehow thrown together an actual little house. "Amazing. You built a house that quick?" "Husband rabbit, you're great," he said, genuinely impressed by the handiwork. Alone in the cave, it had been unbearably boring, and he let himself admit how much that had worn on him. But thanks to the rabbits, I got help with the farming, and got to see some cute things too. For once, the tower didn't feel quite so lonely. Then reality bit back. My back's so hot. What the hell was that? Something had scorched him, and he needed to figure out what. He took stock of what he had. The environment in the Black Tower was rough, but he refused to lose hope, and luckily he still had green onions and a plastic bottle of water. An idea struck. I can use this transparent bottle as a converging lens to start a fire. Just like episode 1 of that wilderness survival series he'd watched online. It refused to cooperate. It only smokes, it won't catch. Why isn't this working? No matter the angle, he got nothing but wisps of smoke. So he called in reinforcements, the rabbit couple. Great. Can you blow some wind on the leaves? Together, they willed it into existence. Please start a fire, he begged the smoking pile. And then, success. It worked. It's really on fire. A real flame, at last. He roasted a sweet potato over it, peeling back the burnt skin with a hiss. Oh, hot. Who the first bite floored him. Sweet. A sugar-like sweetness came rushing through his whole mouth. He devoured it, nearly in tears. So tasty. It's really, really delicious. After everything, one warm meal felt like a miracle. He shoved food toward his little companions, too. Eat more. Help yourselves. Finally, stomach full of warm food for the first time in ages, Se-Jun drifted off to sleep. The survival diary of a lost man, gaining one more good day. Another quiet morning on the farm, and Se-Jun ran through his chores like clockwork. Green onions harvested, cherry tomatoes watered, one task after another checked off. The sweet potatoes got their turn too, and by the time he finished, he let out a satisfied breath. There was something good about work that actually kept you alive. A lot had happened lately, he admitted, so it was worth catching up on how far he had come. Once he had figured out how to start a fire, he burned green onions as fuel and set up torches all around the cave. The torchlight made it easy to move through the dark, so he planted one down by the pond where the shadows were thickest. Then something in the water caught his eye. He leaned in, hardly believing it. A fish, right there in the pond, he thought was empty, had been drawn to the torchlight. He was sure there had been no fish here before the fire went up, and that, he explained, was how he learned to pull fish out of the cave water. So he cooked his catch, said thanks for the meal, and dug in. It was delicious, better than he had any right to expect down here. Even one of the rabbits crept over, curious about the smell. A couple of days later, the blue moon rose over the floor once again. That was how he confirmed the pattern. On this floor, the blue moon came around every 20 days like clockwork. For a while, he had leaned on his laptop and power bank to charge his phone and keep track of the date. But the battery finally died for good, so he switched to scratching tally marks to count the days. 61 and counting, by his best guess. Luckily, the rabbits went to bed at 7 and woke at 6 without fail, so if he followed their body clock, he would never miscount a day again. And a few days back, something wonderful happened. He went to greet the husband rabbit one morning like always. Baby rabbits had been born to the rabbit couple. He cooed over the little ones, asking if they had missed their uncle. Seeing the exhausted new parents, he offered to watch the kids so they could eat and rest, since they clearly hadn't slept a wink. Then he scooped up the babies and took them along to check on the cherry tomato flowers. The blossoms had opened into a whole flower garden, but flowers alone wouldn't feed him. To bear fruit, they needed pollination, so he set to doing it by hand, one bloom at a time. Hunched over the plants all day, left his back aching something fierce. If only a bee would wander in, he thought, though that was surely too much to hope for. The playful rabbits kept trying to sniff the flowers, and he warned them not to breathe in the pollen. Then he spotted it, the first tiny fruit beginning to swell on the vine. His slow, aching labor had finally paid off with real fruit, and it was the day before the blue moon. So he got to work preparing, piling up cover for camouflage and warmth. Everything set, he told himself. It was almost time. He said his goodbyes to the rabbits, promising to see them again once they had survived the night. Blue moon is a piece of cake, he told himself, trying to sound braver than he felt. He had hidden everything that carried a scent and tucked himself into a corner to wait out. But with no way to know how many hours had passed, every minute stretched like an hour. Distant cries drifted in from far off, and even at a distance his body trembled. He prayed it would pass again without anything bad happening. Then a sound broke the silence. What was that? Something had come near, but it hadn't noticed him yet. He needed a better hiding spot, fast before it saw him. Quietly and slowly, he began to move. And then the terror finally boiled over into a scream he couldn't hold back, leaving the blue moon night hanging on a knife's edge. I came with my head spinning, no idea what had just happened. And that blue moon overhead, something about it felt wrong. My whole body ached. I must have passed out cold on the cave floor. Then it came back to me in pieces. The monster, that thing had found my cave. It had been so cold, so dark. I remembered lying there, sure I was finished. Somehow I'd survived, and all I could feel was gratitude. Thank you, I whispered to no one in particular. The monster had noticed my little home. Maybe it sensed another creature. Maybe the cave's mouth was just too small to bother with. Either way, there was no promise it wouldn't come back. I got lucky this time, but next time I could end up dead. And after working this hard just to survive, that thought was unbearable. So I told myself the only thing I could do right now was keep going. Eat well, stay alive. That was the whole plan, and I meant to stick to it. Then I checked on my crops and stopped short. The cherry tomato had swollen up as big as a golf ball. It was beautiful, honestly, but it had turned a strange, glowing blue, and I couldn't figure out why. The moment I picked it, a window flashed in front of my eyes. Quest complete. I'd harvested a fruit carrying the energy of the blue moon. An actual message window, here of all places. Then the tone changed. My achievement had drawn the attention of the tower manager. It said. The tower manager was watching me. The tower manager was not happy. Not happy why, I thought. Then it spelled it out. The tower manager had discovered I wasn't a properly invited guest. And now the tower manager wanted to cover up its own blunder. Blunder? I've been living here 61 days. And now it was a mistake? Then let me go, I shouted. I just want to go home. Instead, the window told me the tower manager was weighing whether to simply kill me and erase the evidence. I unlocked an achievement, and this is my reward? I snapped. You want to erase me? That's too much. There was a long silence, and I started to wonder if I'd been a little too rude. Then a new line appeared. The tower manager was awakening me. Awakening? Did that mean I was officially an awakened to the tower now? The manager was assigning me a job. Swordsman, maybe? No. Imklave surelia wisart. What is my job? I begged. And the answer landed with a soft little thud. You become a tower farmer. The perks rolled in one after another. Because of my job, I'd never get sick, I'd stay close to nature, and I'd earn experience whenever I harvested crops. Farmer? I sputtered. Wait, no. Then my status window opened. Park Se-Jun, level 1, ordinary talent, every stat sitting at 1. Job, tower farmer, skills, none. Ordinary talent. I just stared at the words. My mind spun off into a daydream. Some late-night talk show introducing me as the special guest who cleared the tower on ordinary talent alone, the crowd roaring. So, Mr. Se-Jun, what's your job? The host asked. I'm the tower farmer, I said, and the whole room burst out laughing. No, I wailed, snapping out of it. Farmer. Then I looked over at my little rabbit companion and my crops. We worked really hard to grow this, I thought, softening. Fine. Guess I'm meant to keep farming, whatever the tower calls it. And when I inspected that glowing tomato properly, its details came up. A magical cherry tomato imbued with the energy of the blue moon, tasty and nutritious, that permanently raises MP when eaten. Cultivator, Tower Farmer Park Se-Jun. Rank E, shelf life 30 days. This tomato was actually an item. The boost was tiny, but it permanently raised my stats. My God, this was amazing. I had to hand it to myself. I'd grown something genuinely great. It's all thanks to you I made it this far, I told the rabbit, who chirped happily back at me. Then another window snapped open. A quest. Offer the fruit holding the energy of the blue moon to the tower manager. Reward, a job-related skill, and the penalty for refusing death. Death. I read it again. Sure, it had to be a joke. But the blue moon just hung there over the cave, silent, as another midnight came down on me. Right, I told myself. It had to be a joke, right? A new alert flashed to life in front of Se-Jun. A quest had been triggered. Offer the fruit containing the energy of the blue moon to the tower manager. The reward was a job-related skill, and the penalty for refusal was death. He wasn't fooled by the polite wording. You call it quest, he thought, but this is just blackmail. Don't dress it up like I have a choice. Death, seriously? He couldn't believe how little a single life seemed to be worth to whatever ran this place. So he handed over the blue moon fruit anyway, half laughing, half pleading. Here you go, he muttered. Just spare my life. The system chimed back at once. He had completed the quest. Then it hit him. There was a reward. He'd been so fixated on the death penalty that he'd forgotten the quest promised a job-related skill. Tower manager. He thought wryly, you're pretty generous after all. The reward unfolded before him. It was a farming skill that slightly increased the chance of germination whenever he planted a seed. Right, he remembered with a small smile. His job really was tower farmer, so of course the reward suited the work. Out on the cave floor, another kill rang up 2 experience points. Since being awakened, he'd been earning points by hunting the strange fish that swam these dark waters, catching a few each day just to survive. It had been enough to push him to level 2. He wanted to catch more, but killing without reason didn't sit right with him. They were a decent source of protein, so he was careful not to wipe them out entirely. Back at camp, the rabbit kids dug into the meal with alarming enthusiasm. Take your time, he laughed. You've really started eating a lot now that you're growing. Leave some for your mom and dad. He'd also pieced together what the rabbits actually were. Farmer white rabbits, a type of monster he'd never once heard of outside the tower. From the name, he guessed their species specialized in farming rather than fighting. That, he figured, was exactly why nobody out in the world knew they existed. He couldn't know their whole story, but he imagined they'd lost their farm somewhere, wandered a long way, and somehow ended up down here with him. Did they have a home to return to? He couldn't understand a word a rabbit said, and he wished, just once, that they could truly understand each other. Then the big day arrived. After all their hard work, the time had finally come to harvest the fruit they'd grown, the first true crop, since the ones gathered right after the blue moon didn't count. He steadied his hand over the vine. He was going to harvest it right now. The moment he plucked it, the system responded. He'd obtained a well-ripe magical cherry tomato, and his job experience nudged upward. Magical cherry tomato, he thought, so this was the same kind of item he'd received once before. He read its description carefully. When eaten, the magical cherry tomato broke down fats and restored a small trickle of mana, 0.1 MP, every 10 minutes, stackable up to 10 times for as long as an hour. The effect only lasted 10 minutes on its own, he realized, but 10 of them at once could raise his MP by a full point. And if the cherry tomatoes worked like this, maybe the other crops did too. His next pick went wrong. He'd grabbed an unripe one, and the system told him flatly that this fruit gave no job experience at all. So that was the rule. An unripe tomato was just an ordinary tomato, not an item. Only a well-ripe cherry tomato counted, and only that would register as a reward. Picking exactly the ripe ones by hand, it turned out was harder than he'd thought. Still, the points added up. A chime told him he'd leveled up and earned a bonus stat. Level 4 already, he marveled. That was enough harvesting for now. When one of the kids pouted at being left out, he softened at once. Sorry, he laughed. We did all of this together, so of course we should all eat together too. So they celebrated the harvest as a family, the rabbits diving in with a cheerful thanks for the meal. Then he tasted his own cherry tomato, and it stopped him cold. The fresh scent of grass, the sweet and sour burst of flavor, it was like fireworks going off in the middle of summer. Watching the kids, he noticed they were big enough now to help their mom and dad, true children of the farmer white rabbit. A wave of drowsiness rolled over him. Time to sleep, he told himself, and rest up for another great day. You did a good job today, parked Se-Jun. But sleep didn't come easy. A new quest triggered in the dark. Offer 100 magical cherry tomatoes to the tower manager. Reward, a job-related skill. Refusal, death. There was no arguing with it. Fine, he groaned. I'll get you some. And the moment he agreed, the tower manager declared itself satisfied and dangled another reward. Please, he begged, give me something useful this time. This time it delivered. Harvest level 1, a skill that let him gather fruit in prime condition even when it was slightly overripe or underripe. At first he didn't get it. A harvesting skill, he thought skeptically, why would I even need this? But it proved more useful than he'd expected. Now, whenever he picked a slightly unripe or overripe tomato, the skill nudged it to its optimal state, so he earned job experience even from imperfect fruit. That meant he no longer had to wait for every tomato to ripen perfectly, making the whole harvest faster and far easier. Time for a little rest, he figured, but the tower had other plans. As he'd feared, another demand arrived, this one with no reward attached at all. You, he muttered, are a straight-up thief. The manager relented just a little, admitting the last quest had helped it out, and grudgingly handed over a small gift. Then it fired off the next order. Offer 200 magical cherry tomatoes. Reward, none. Refusal, death. And that was only the beginning. Another quest triggered, demanding 250 this time. Again, he thought, staring at the endless prompts. It just kept getting greedier with no end in sight. 300 tomatoes now. Why, he wondered, does the number keep climbing? Then came the one that broke his patience. Offer 500 magical cherry tomatoes to the tower manager. Reward, none. Refusal, death. For the first time, he drew a line. I refuse, he said flatly, and the system reported that the manager of the tower was stunned. And so, in his diary of being lost inside the tower, he marked the day he rebelled against the tower manager for the very first time and wondered what that defiance would cost him. A quest flashed up cold as ever. Offer 500 magical cherry tomatoes to the tower manager. Reward, none. Refusal, death. I lost it. Again? You've already taken hundreds of them earlier. We also need to eat some to stay alive. You people are too much. The manager didn't budge. It insisted the crops were the tower farmer's problem, so I should stop protesting and just hand over the tomatoes. My problem? I could only stare, dumbfounded at the nerve of it. I worked hard and suffered for days to harvest these, but the manager waved it off, saying I'd only sown the seeds and shouldn't overreact over something so small. That did it. No, I told it flatly. I don't want to. I'm not giving them to you. The tower manager went dead silent, flustered, like it had never once heard the word no. After a beat, it recovered and asked, stiffly, whether I was really refusing the quest. Then came a threat I already knew. Refuse, and I could die. It says I might die, sure, but I'm not handing the crops I grew to someone who shrugs and says, all I did was sow the seeds. It argued that's exactly the tower farmer's job, and that as the manager I had to obey its orders. That's why. I said, I'm not giving them to you. You forced me into this and never once appreciated my effort. You pay me next to nothing for all this exploitation. You call yourself the tower manager? Then let me say it plain, I told it. You're a bad employer. That tipped it over the edge. The manager was furious that I'd eaten the magical cherry tomatoes myself, snarling it would kill me right now if I didn't do the quest. So I bargained fast. I'll give the rest later, I said. For now, just take 5. I need to feed the other kids too, I added, thinking of my rabbits back at the plot. Grumbling, the manager said it would compromise this one time. Thank you, I breathed. As it faded out, something almost soft slipped through. It was definitely trying to say sorry, right? Maybe the all-powerful tower manager was simpler than I'd ever thought. Day 91 since I got lost. The 4th blue moon had risen over the cave. I'd heard that people with high MP can withstand a monster's roar to a point, so I kept eating to build it up, hoping what happened last time wouldn't happen again. Then I saw it. Even the sweet potato leaves were glowing with a blue light. No way, I whispered. I had to check it for myself, so I dropped everything and dug in. And there it was. A sweet potato soaked in the energy of the blue moon, tastier than ever, and, when eaten, granting a permanent 0.05 MP increase. Rank E, Cultivator, Tower Farmer Se-Jun. A window burst open. I'd harvested a sweet potato with the moon's energy. My harvesting proficiency maxed and leveled up, and I gained 50 experience points. I laughed out loud, arms full of glowing crops. It was as if I held the whole world in both hands. Right on cue, 2 quests triggered at once. Offer the Blue Moon sweet potatoes to the manager, and offer the Blue Moon cherry tomatoes too. Reward none, refusal death, both times. 2 quests at the same time? It's really going hard on this one. Refusing these might actually get me killed. So I played it smart. I'll finish the last quest, I said, offering the remaining magic cherry tomatoes to you. The quest completed, and the manager was visibly pleased with the basket of magical cherry tomatoes. Then it caught on, muttering, "What are you doing?" "I'll give the rest later," I said quickly. "Please let it slide for today." So much for calling it simple. Bluffing, the manager insisted I hand over the sweet potatoes later. Yes, I agreed, then paused. So what should I do with this one now? The answer was obvious, of course. It was going straight into my mouth. The freshness, the sweetness, a whole festival in my mouth. A window confirmed I'd consumed a cherry tomato with the Blue Moon's energy, MP permanently up by 0.05. For the sweet potato, I had my all-purpose onion leaves ready, though I did miss having tinfoil. Waiting for good food, I decided, is the happiest time there is. Just then my rabbits came bounding up. "Guys, what great timing. I present to you," I announced, "a sweet potato with the energy of the blue moon. It's not much, but let's eat together," I told them, and they went wild. But there was only one. "Do you want me to just eat it myself, since there's only the one?" I asked, half joking. One rabbit nudged it back toward me, and I nearly teared up. "You're the only one thinking about me." I'm so moved. I'll never tell him I already ate one secretly earlier, I thought, keeping that little crime to myself. Then, "Fine, I'll eat it," I said, finally taking a bite. "It's hot," I yelped, and the rabbit scolded me right back. It scalded my palate, and worse, it burned my tongue. Ack, my tongue. In the scramble, I lost my grip. Oh no, my sweet potato. My diary of getting lost in the tower. Today, I ate a fiery hot meal, and it fought back the whole way down. Se-Jun gathered his little band of monster rabbits and made an announcement. From now on, they would be planting the sweet potato sprouts. But there was a catch. The rabbits were officially forbidden from eating the sweet potato sprouts for the time being, since they'd been devouring them as their new favorite snack. The rabbits protested loudly, but Se-Jun held firm. Complaining, he told them, was no use at all. So he cut a deal instead. If they helped him plant the sprouts before dinner, he'd reward them with something even tastier, a batch of special snacks. The rabbits perked right up. With the little workers on his side, he decided to expand the field and clear more ground so he could plant even more sweet potato sprouts. He also set aside a plan for his green onions, saving one to let it flower so he could harvest its seeds and keep the crop going. The key, he realized, was that he needed to actually plant the seeds first before anything could become a proper item. Over in the tomato patch, a harvest notice bloomed. He'd gathered ripe magic cherry tomatoes, nudged his proficiency up a little, and picked up 10 experience points and a bonus stat along the way. Then the big one landed. His job experience was full, and his class leveled up from Tower Farmer level F to the next rank, strengthening his job characteristics. At this rate, he figured, he could just keep harvesting his way up. As he set out to cook, a system message informed him the tower manager was watching with great interest to see what he'd make today. Se-Jun leaned into the show, teasing the rabbits about the treat to come, his special roasted cherry tomato skewers. The dish came out as skewered cherry tomatoes roasted on clean piranha bones, a trick that made the tomatoes come out sweeter and more flavorful. He warned everyone to blow on the hot skewers before biting in, then figured it was time to dig up some sweet potatoes for dinner, since enough sprouts were already planted. The sweet potatoes turned out to be something special, a strength sweet potato that broke down fat and boosted strength by a fraction for 10 minutes, grown by Tower Farmer Park's Se-Jun himself. He pulled about 5 potatoes from each plant and counted up 15 in total, a pretty good haul for a first harvest. When he tucked the leftover sprouts back into the ground rather than waste them, the system counted it as sowing and bumped his proficiency to his surprise, which raised a funny thought. To raise his skill level, Maybe he simply needed to plant every last bit of it. The rabbits sampled a roasted potato and yelped that it was bitter, until they bit through to the sweet inside and melted at the real taste. Meanwhile, the tower manager, calling itself a great dragon, seethed that those little punks were roasting sweet potatoes without it. And so an additional quest was triggered, blunt and menacing. Give 1 roasted string sweet potato to the tower manager. Reward none. Penalty for refusal, death. The manager kept pressing, insisting Se-Jun hand over the roasted potato. He countered by asking if there was anything it could offer as a reward, noting he only had 1 left. Caught out, the tower manager promptly revised its own quest and reissued the demand for a single roasted string sweet potato. Se-Jun offered up the potato, shrugging that another job-related skill in return was fine by him, and the quest was marked complete. His reward turned out to be the seed store skill. Once activated, it let him buy a product from the seed shop once every 30 days. A seed store inside the tower where he could actually purchase things. Delighted, he thanked the tower manager and burst out laughing at his luck. The store checked customer Park Se-Jun's transaction history and found none, which he cheerfully admitted. Of course, he had nothing to show yet. He had no money and no idea how to pay, and wondered if he could just barter, when the store congratulated him as its first rookie-tier customer and granted him 1 tower coin, deposited into his seed bank account. He marveled at the tower coin, a currency used inside the tower said to be worth around 1,000,000 on the market, and asked what he could buy with it. For rookie-tier, the store displayed 3 random seeds available that day, and warned that at his current level, he could only purchase 1. The 3 choices appeared: red pepper seeds, carrot seeds, and cabbage seeds, each priced at 1/10 of a tower coin. It really was just seeds, exactly as the name promised. Doing the math, he blanched. 1/10 of a coin came out to roughly 100,000 won per 1,000 seeds. Painfully expensive. He ruled out red pepper and cabbage as too impractical, since he couldn't even make kimchi down here. Then he noticed the rabbits growing frantic and asked if what they really wanted was carrots. At the word, the rabbits erupted into a chanting, bouncing mob, carrot, carrot, leaving him little doubt about their vote. So carrots it was. He purchased 1,000 carrot seeds. 1/10 of a tower coin was withdrawn from his seed bank, and he earned his first point of seed shop mileage, useful toward leveling up, with 100 points needed to advance. The seeds even arrived in a pouch, so fine, he joked it was pricier than the seeds themselves, as the store thanked him and reminded him he could return in 30 days. A new crop and a whole new economy had just opened up inside the tower. It had been a few days since I planted the carrots, and the seeds still hadn't sprouted. But the rabbits had been camped out in front of the spot all day long. Did they really like carrots that much? I figured I'd pollinate the flowers and cut some onions in the afternoon. First, though, a nap sounded perfect. Then something buzzed into the field. Seriously, why did a bug suddenly have to show up right now? But when I got a closer look, it was so cute I forgot to be annoyed. Was this little thing a monster in the shape of a bug? Come here, I coaxed. Let's see what your name is. The name came back. Poison honeybee. I froze. A poison honeybee? Guys, isn't this thing dangerous? But the rabbits had already bolted. You mean rabbits, I yelled after them. How could you leave me here all by myself like this? The tower manager explained that poison honeybees are carnivorous, hunting monsters with venomous stingers and eating their flesh. So the safest move was to avoid them entirely. Wait, they eat flesh? Doesn't that make them not even bees anymore? So I did the only sensible thing and begged. I'm not tasty, I insisted. I'm nothing but bones, so please spare me. Damn it, eat this instead, I blurted, shoving something else at the bee. But the bee just settled onto the flowers. Weren't you supposed to be carnivorous? Then it clicked. Moisture. It was after the nectar all along. Relieved, I waved a hand at it. Hey, poison honeybee, if you're hungry, you can eat the other flowers too. Go on, eat to your heart's content. And honestly, at this rate, I wouldn't even need to pollinate the cherry tomatoes myself anymore. When the rabbits finally slunk back, I gave them a look. After running off worried only about yourselves, you've got the nerve to show up again? One of them sulked. I don't want to make up. It seemed to huff. I'll stay mad, so stop touching me. By evening, the bee had tuckered itself out. "You're going to sleep?" I whispered. "See, cute." Still, I couldn't help asking. "You aren't going to sting me, right?" In my diary of getting lost in the tower, I wrote that our little family had gained one more member. Day 120 after getting lost. The rabbits were underfoot again. "You guys, I'm working over here, so go play somewhere else." But they were having such a great time, I let it go. Of course you should play around while you're still young. "Oh, have you sucked up all the nectar already?" Several weeks had passed since the poison honeybee first arrived. Was it about time for lunch? She'd fallen into a rhythm, coming to work in the morning, sucking nectar, and returning to the forest outside the cave by evening. "Guys, it's lunchtime." Maybe, I thought, she wasn't going back to her own swarm at all. A few days earlier, she'd even started spitting out honey for me. The sweet flavor of freshly grilled green onion turned out to be even better drizzled with the poison bee's sticky honey. So sweet, I marveled, it's delicious. And thanks to her, I've been able to expand the field quickly just to keep up with the honey. To think I was freaked out at first, sure she was going to poison me. In a few months, I figured I'd have so much honey I wouldn't even envy the bears anymore. The tower's manager, it noted, was happy for me. But another worry crept in. The blue moon was coming, and I could only hope that it would pass by safely this time, too. Day 121 after getting lost. This should be enough as far as food was concerned. And seeing how the poison honeybee had stopped coming around, she must have been getting ready for the blue moon herself. The rabbits were especially anxious today, squealing and pacing. "Come on, guys," I called. "Let's head home." But when I turned around, they were gone. "Guys." Then I saw it, and my blood ran cold. What the? The parent rabbits had fled without their babies. How could you leave them behind like that? I shouted. "The blue moon is calm." A monstrous roar tore through the cave. What in the world is going on here? Whatever the blue moon had brought this time, it had only just begun. Se-Jun stared completely alone. Something about his little farm had changed overnight, and for once he had no idea what he was even looking at. Then it clicked. The baby rabbits he'd watched hop around the cave were the ones standing in front of him now. They had become full-grown rabbits. Even their fur had changed color, and Se-Jun could barely believe his eyes. It was the 5th blue moon since they were born, which made this something like a coming-of-age ceremony. He'd been afraid something bad had happened to them, but it was only that they'd grown up. Overcome, he chased the newly grown rabbits around demanding congratulatory kisses, while they scattered and squealed to get away from him. Beaming like a proud father, he started wondering aloud whether he should throw them a proper coming-of-age feast. But then something caught his eye. The grown rabbits were holding tools he'd never seen before. To his astonishment, the adult farmer rabbits could now summon their own farming gear, sickles, carts, watering cans, and shovels, straight out of thin air. So that was the rule. Once a rabbit became a full-grown farmer, it earned its own personal item, and Se-Jun couldn't borrow it. One rabbit, though, had summoned a hammer, which wasn't a farm tool at all, and that gave Se-Jun pause. Its title made things clearer and stranger at once. A black rabbit classed not as a farmer, but as a warrior. The other grown rabbits had already fallen in beside their mom and dad, pitching in on the farm work. The babies who'd once tumbled around the cave had turned out so well that Se-Jun got a little misty-eyed. But the warrior rabbit was a puzzle. A warrior's job was to fight, yet down in this safe cave there were no monsters threatening the farm, and a hammer was no help with the crops. Se-Jun had no idea what to do with him. Then it hit him. The warrior could hunt in the pond, and hunting was a kind of fighting too, so the little black rabbit could finally make himself useful. Se-Jun laid out the plan. He'd lure the fish with the torch, and the warrior rabbit would catch them. Time to show off the power of a warrior. The first attempts were a flop, and the little warrior slumped in defeat, but Se-Jun cheered him on, promising he'd get better with practice, and that for now, they'd just eat. Little by little, the rabbits settled into their new roles, and Se-Jun coached them along one clumsy catch at a time. On the 125th day, the seed store reopened, its window blinking that it was ready for business again. Excited to shop, Se-Jun found 3 random seeds on offer, though at his level he could only afford to pick a single one. On the menu were watermelon seeds, waxy corn seeds, and sweet pumpkin seeds, and the prices made him do a double take. The costs were wildly different from last time, and clearly climbing. With only 0.9 tower coins to his name, the cheap waxy corn was all he could afford, and it worried him. If prices kept rising, he wouldn't be able to buy anything next time, and he had no way to earn more coins stuck down here. He ran through how hunters normally made money. Clearing a floor paid well, but only once per floor, so the real cut for any given hunter wasn't much. The second way was hunting monsters. You'd sell the monster bodies to a wandering merchant or the shop on the first floor, and since it brought in steady profits, it was the best income source of all. The third way was completing quests for rewards. But quest rewards varied too much to count on, and clearing the floor was hopeless when he couldn't even escape the cave. That left just one option. The heist-level quest the tower manager itself had handed him. So he called out to the tower manager, asking if it could simply pay him the tower coins for completing that quest right now. The manager replied that it didn't know what he meant, but it would give him the reward later, once he was grown up. Se-Jun blinked. The tower manager didn't even recognize tower coins, and now it was calling him child. When he pressed it on how many more years until he was grown up, the manager only said that was a secret. Then it added that he needed to be at least 300 years old. Se-Jun lost it. So he was supposed to log every tower coin from now on and pass it down through the generations until his 7th-generation grandchildren collected the reward, and he wasn't exactly in a position to be having descendants either. Swallowing his anger, he decided to just focus on surviving. The only seed he could actually buy was the corn, and honestly corn wasn't a bad pick at all. He could steam it, grill it, even grind it into flour and try making something like bread. So he made up his mind and chose the waxy corn. The system confirmed it. 200 waxy corn seeds purchased, half a tower coin withdrawn, 5 seed shop mileage earned, and the store locked again for the next 30 days. Back at the farm, he showed off his handiwork to the rabbits, asking if it didn't look nice and solid. He was ready to dive into work, but caught himself deciding they should eat something first. Stuffed to bursting, he figured he'd dry and store whatever they couldn't finish. Softening toward one of his rabbits, he mused that it had been spending so much time in the cave lately, and wondered if it would be all right not going back to its own home. With a fond chuckle, he told it that if it didn't want to go home, he'd happily keep it here, because it was just too cute. Then the whole warren of rabbits suddenly went on alert. A monster! They shrieked, all of them squealing at once, as something new stepped into the cave. The intruder threw up its paws in a panic, insisting it wasn't some shameless creature come to steal their food and begging everyone not to get the wrong idea. Akat, Se-Jun réalised. So what then? Had it come all this way for? The cat gave a polite little hello. Then it asked, oddly formally, whether he happened to be the customer park Se-Jun. It introduced itself as Theo, a wandering merchant. And just like that, Se-Jun's diary of being lost in the tower gained a new entry. The day he met a wandering merchant cat. A stranger asks if I'm the rookie customer, Park Se-Jun. Then he introduces himself as Theo, a wandering merchant. A wandering merchant? I'd heard that people climbing the tower sometimes meet one, but I never expected the merchant to be a cat. Those shiny eyes, those soft cheeks. It felt like a total scam on my heart, because the truth is I really like cats. Mr. Se-Jun? He asks. I clear my throat and admit it. That's me. So what do you want? He'd heard a new rookie was making transactions at the seed store, so he came to greet me and maybe strike a few deals. Deals? I ask. Yes, he says, brightening up. I got a pretty good item for you. But then his stomach growls loudly. He apologizes, mortified. He hasn't eaten all day, and now he's embarrassed himself in front of customer. How, Zai? I ask. Do you want to eat a roasted fish? He refuses politely, insisting he can't possibly touch a customer's food. But the smell of sweet, tender meat grilling over the fire, with that fishy flavor no cat can resist, is too much. Go on, I tell him. You want it. It's yours. He caves, and he does not hold back. 5 whole fish later, he sits back, stuffed and blissful. You must have been starving, I say. He thanks me over and over, saying he doesn't know how to repay such a kind treat. It's nothing, he adds sweetly. I'm the thankful one. You came all this way to meet me. Then about that deal, I say, half a tower coin. Pardon? He blinks. You got to pay for the roasted fish you just ate, don't you? Wasn't it free? He asks. Nothing's free in this world, I tell him. Besides, you said you came here to make a deal. Reluctantly, he hands over half a tower coin. And just like that, I've got my first coin from him, while he can only manage a weak thank you. He's reeling inside. He came to take a customer's money, and instead, he's the one giving it away. A business already running at a loss. No, he tells himself, I can't be beaten like this. He rallies. He'll sell every last thing he brought. It's my turn now, he declares. Please take a look at my items. Tajda. He sings. These are hot items from another floor. A tumbler for 5 tower coins, a mini fan, all supposedly premium goods. Wait, I say, are these items from outside the tower? So you noticed? He grins, thinking he's found the perfect buyer. He goes into his sales pitch, that the tumbler holds preservation magic, and the mini fan carries a wind enchantment you switch on whenever you like. Sorry to cut you off, I say gently. What's wrong? He asks. Every item you brought is trash. He freezes, stunned. Trash? What are you talking about? He cries. These are items from outside the tower. And that's exactly why I know, I tell him, because I'm from outside the tower too. This tumbler just blocks heat transfer from the outside, I explain. There's no magic in it at all. And a mini fan and the hand warmer? Run them a few hours and they'll die, because the batteries simply run out. That's not true, he insists. Scarum said there was magic inside. But when he flips the switch, nothing happens. See? I say. The battery's already dead. Impossible. Move, Naya. He wails, shaking the dead fan. I think you got scammed, I tell him, by that Scarum who sold you all this. He was so kind to me, Naya. Theo sniffles, refusing to believe it. Then the tears just start pouring out. He's dropped the polite tone entirely, now tacking a Naya onto every sentence. Scarum's a bad goblin, Naya. Why'd I always get scammed, Naya? Theo, I ask carefully, do you mind telling me what happened? Between hiccuping sobs, he begins his story. He's from the tower's 75th floor, a neutral zone. For years he adored Mari, the most beautiful girl in Granner Village, until at last he worked up the courage to confess. Mari, I like you. Please date me. Her answer was cruel. Yuck, she spat, the smell of a cheap rice fish. She knocks his gift away. WH, what are you doing, Meryl? He stammers. I worked so hard to catch those roasted rice fish. Then Oren struts in, the son of the richest cat in the village. Know your place, Theo, he sneers. How dare you try to seduce Meryl? How could you give a lady a low-grade rice fish? Oren mocks. You should at least bring a fine salmon. But Mari watches on, unmoved by the humble gift. Let's go, Meryl, Oren laughs, back to my house to slice up some salmon steak. Wait. How polite. Wait, Meryl, he begs, thinking of everything they'd shared. Then she turns and tells him she never meant any of it. It was all a lie, she says coldly. I can see your tears, he answers. Can you really swear on it? She twists the knife. I smiled at you a few times and you got delusional, she snaps. I said don't follow me. I hate poor cats that reek of cheap rice fish, and I hate you the most. And with that, Mari was taken away by Oren, the son of the richest cats in town. Hawa. Heartbroken, Theo decided to run away and become a wandering merchant, driven by the will to grow rich and get his revenge. He spent his entire life savings, 50 tower coins, on a merchant's license and gear, planning to buy stock from a peddler with his last 5 coins and resell at a profit. That's when he met a peddler who asked, "Are you the new wandering merchant?" This, Theo says, was Scarum, the one he trusted at that fateful place. Items from outside the tower, Scarum whispered, precious ones, a secret just for you. Take them to the upper floors, and you'll turn a fine profit, since the creatures up there collect such things as a hobby. But why sell me such great items so cheap? Theo asked. Because I've come to like you, Scarum purred. Call it a senior merchant's goodwill toward his junior. If you don't want them, Scarum shrugged, I'll just give them to another merchant. And no, how balut, I'll buy them. As a bonus, Scarum tossed in a map to a new seed store user, an easy mark for profit, and reminded Theo that tonight's beer was on him. Yeah, of course, thank you. Theo beamed, never suspecting a thing. So he handed every coin he had to scare him for the items, then starved himself half to death dragging them all the way here. It was all trash. On top of that, his customer took the last of his money. I'm no good at anything, he sobs. This cat is a total pushover, I think, watching him fall apart. And then it hits me. Wait, I've just remembered a way I could actually earn a tower coin. Calm down, Theo, I say. Why don't you cheer up with some roasted fish? He eyes me warily. You're only offering so you can charge me later, aren't you? I'm not stupid. No, I tell him, this one's free, and I'll count everything you ate before as a treat too. Really? He sniffles, hope flickering back. In exchange, I ask, do you think you could work with us? In my diary of getting lost in the tower, I found a pushover, no a partner. What do you think? I ask, holding out my hand to my new merchant friend. The merchant cat blinked at the offer, hardly believing his ears. Se-Jun wanted the two of them to work together. Se-Jun explained he needed a good merchant to sell his goods, and asked whether the cat thought he was up to the job. The cat hesitated, reminding him of the sob story he'd told earlier. He was just a noob, a useless wandering merchant who'd already been swindled once. But Se-Jun waved it off. Little mistakes aside, the cat clearly had a real gift, and with the stories he'd shared, he had just landed himself a business partner. A business partner, the cat repeated, dazed. Right, a business partner. Grinning, Se-Jun called out to his farm hands to gather round. He laid out the cat's situation plainly. The poor merchant had been deceived, couldn't sell his stock, and now had no money left to even open a deal of his own. That's right, the cat admitted. So Se-Jun made his pitch, a simple win-win. The cat would take his crops and sell them to others, and in return earn an incentive from share of the revenue. Incentive? Yeah, incentive, Se-Jun confirmed, so long as the cat sold the items above the prices he set. But when the terms landed at just 3 to 5%, the cat's eyes narrowed. Those conditions were far too unfavorable for him. Did Se-Jun really think he was stupid enough to be tricked again? Right, Se-Jun said, snapping his fingers. He'd forgotten to mention the most important part. The deal wasn't limited to a cut of the sales. On top of that, Se-Jun would pay him 10 grilled fish or equivalent coins every single week. Mew, the cat squeaked as the full term sank in. Grilled fish too. The cat swallowed hard, tempted to spite himself. So, Se-Jun asked, did he want to sign a contract or not? No, the cat scolded himself. Had he already forgotten what happened before? Be a smart cat, he insisted, don't get deceived a second time. And yet, torn to pieces, he cracked. If Se-Jun would give him 20 grilled fish, he'd reconsider. Se-Jun was feeling generous. He'd hand over not just 20, but 5 more fish on top, and there was still one more thing. Meow. The cat gasped. Besides the weekly pay, Se-Jun added, the cat could eat as much grilled fish as he wanted whenever he was here. Really? The word hit like lightning. As much as he wanted. The cat trembled, a tearful meow escaping him at the sheer beauty of it. Do see you and have people. I have it, the cat blurted, scrambling to make it official. And so, the contract was drawn up between Party A, Park Se-Jun, and Party B, the cat, Theo. The contract is complete, Se-Jun announced. Theo froze, the excitement draining from his face. He'd been so caught up in the fish that he hadn't even realized he'd signed. Naya. Inside the tower, Theo knew a contract was one of the most important documents there was impossible to destroy. He'd wondered why it was made so hard to erase or tamper with, and now he understood. That was exactly what made it valid and binding. How ingenious. Then his eyes caught the 4th clause of the special conditions. What was this about a Naya accent, using the dialect from Granner? It was a bit embarrassing, honestly. Se-Jun only chuckled, telling him he'd understand when the time came, and that they should do well together. But Theo fretted over the first special clause, the one about performance. If Theo didn't sell well, Se-Jun could terminate the contract. Don't worry, Se-Jun said warmly. It'll sell well. Wouldn't the resourceful sales cat Theo agree? I love it. Theo beamed, sales cat Theo the resourceful. He's so simple, Se-Jun thought with a small smile. Then Theo paused. But what kind of things would he actually be selling? Oh, that, said Se-Jun. It was just cherry tomatoes. Cherry tomatoes? Theo's face fell flat. Se-Jun hendet wanoa. It was an item, magical cherry tomatoes that restored 0.1 mana over 10 minutes. And how much, Theo asked, was he selling these for? If he was lucky, maybe he'd get something out of the fresh awakeners just arriving at the tower. Said Se-Jun. It was 0.05 tower coin per piece. Theo nearly fell over. What idiot would ever buy this? But Se-Jun saw the bright side. The contract only ended if the month's sales fell short of 5 tower coins, and in the meantime, he'd still be eating grilled fish. Se-Jun had also already prepared 25 grilled fish as Theo's weekly payment. But how, Theo wondered, was he supposed to carry all of this? Theo would use his item, the bundle. It carried preservation magic, space expansion, and a lightness enchantment, letting him hold a great deal and keep it fresh for a long time. Se-Jun watched the crops vanish into the little sack. How convenient, he murmured, genuinely impressed. Then, Theo declared, hoisting his bundle, he'd be back. A few days later, on the 38th floor of the tower, a very different scene was unfolding. There's still one more, a hunter shouted, corner it. Fireball. A blast tore through the air as the party pressed their attack. As expected of the leader of the Phoenix Guild, Kim Dongshik, they cheered. He told them it would end with a single sword skill. Enough with the praises, the leader said. Let's wrap it up. And no cheating this time. Jessica. Ah, leader, she cooed. You know I love you, right? Gosh, this girl, he sighed. Then something shifted at the edge of the clearing. Who's there? The leader snapped. Human, a small voice purred. Would you like to see some good stuff, Naya? Ah, cut. The hunters could hardly believe what they were seeing. Akat wandering merchant. Nice to meet you all. Naya, Theo said with a little bow, as the party stared in disbelief. It said Naya, how cute. The women melted at once. I am cute, Nia. How pinan. Oh my, look at that paw. So that was the reason, Theo realized. Se-Jun had told him to use Granner's dialect with the humans, because it would catch their attention. Everyone, Theo announced, please look at what I brought, Naya. What is this? One hunter frowned. A cherry tomato? Had he really come here to sell food? If he wanted to sell something, they scoffed, it should be bread or meat, not cherry tomatoes. Ho ho, foolish humans, Theo laughed. He'd known they'd say that. These are nothing like any tomatoes they knew. Why didn't they check its stats, he suggested. Stats? So it was an item? Magic cherry tomato, one read aloud, increases 0.01 mana over 10 minutes. That seemed awfully low. How much did it cost? It's 0.05 tower coin per piece, Naya. 0.05. They balked. They'd rather spend their coins on equipment than on this. Let's go. One said, we're wasting our time. Wait, Theo called after them. If they ate this, he said, they'd lose fat with every bite. Lose weight just by eating it? They checked again, and it seemed to be true, up to 10 pieces an hour. 200. No, I'll buy everything you have. Give me 100 too. Meow. Theo reeled as the crowd surged forward. Weren't they on a diet these days anyway? I'll be the one who buys it. Go away. It's mine. The hunter shoved and grabbed. Please get in line, Naya. Theo pleaded, overwhelmed, as even the onlookers wondered if they should buy some too. Meanwhile, back on his farm, Se-Jun took a breath as a familiar chime rang out. He had leveled up and gained a bonus stat. Theo must be doing well, he mused. By now he'd surely have met the hunters. And Theo was making the most of it. At first glance, he pitched, the magic cherry tomatoes just looked like an item to boost your magic power. But they could dissolve 100 grams of fat and revitalize the body, the finest diet product they'd find nowhere else. Best of all, no side effects and delicious too, he added, popping one into his mouth. Yummy. This, Theo thought with a gleam in his eye, would definitely sell a lot. And it did. Before long, there was nothing left. Sold out. Naya, Theo breathed, staring at his empty bundle in triumph, as the merchant cat's first day on the job proved Se-Jun's little tomatoes were worth far more than anyone in the tower had guessed. Se-Jun tallies his harvest and frowns. Of the 1,000 carrot seeds he bought and planted, only about 700 have actually sprouted. It's the same story with the cherry tomatoes. Of the 1,200 magic seeds he saved from his own plants, just 732 pushed up through the soil. Corn, sweet potato, carrot, tomato, it's all hovering around a 60 to 70% germination rate no matter what he grows. Maybe his tower farmer level is still too low, or maybe cave soil just isn't fertile enough. Either way, he decides to keep at it. Sure, he'll find a better method down the line. For now, the plan is simple. Harvest as much as possible because he's finally got a way to turn crops into tower coins. The rabbits chirp their agreement. Then the black rabbit comes trotting back with a fresh kill. "Oh," Se-Jun laughs, "you've gotten pretty good at hunting, haven't you?" Suddenly the rabbit's whole body starts glowing. It's leveling up. Se-Jun cheers him on. He's watched the white rabbits level while farming, but this is the first time he's seen the black one do it. Little by little, his monster rabbit is becoming a true hunter. With that milestone hit, Se-Jun figures it's a good moment to call a break. Time. He grins for a cup of coffee. He digs out the tumbler he lifted from Theo and that scamming goblin, Scarum. Lucky for him, they never even bothered to open it. Thanks to their carelessness, he scored the good stuff for free. No pot to boil water, no ice for an iced Americano, but down here, even this counts as pure luxury. He turns to his poison bee with a grateful smile. "Thank you as always, buddy." He whips up a honey Americano, coffee powder dissolved in cool cave water and stirred with the bee's thick honey, a perfect harmony of bitter and sweet. One sip and it wipes out fatigue and hunger. He takes a slurp and melts. So sweet. He offers a taste to the rabbit, who bounces over eagerly. The rabbit takes one sip and immediately sputters. Se-Jun cracks up. Guess a rabbit's tongue is a lot more sensitive to bitterness than humans. Then he calls his poison bee back over, an idea forming. Is that a beehive? He can't believe what he's seeing. The bee is moving in for good. Se-Jun's overjoyed. No more waving it off home every night for dinner. Now it finally feels like they're a family, and that calls for a party. Right on cue, a new quest pops up. Hand over 10 magic cherry tomatoes to the tower's manager. Reward, none. Refusal, disappointment. He notices the manager's changed his tune. Ever since seeing the deal with Theo, the old threats of pay up or I'll kill you have vanished, replaced by a sad little plea. Softening, Se-Jun decides to share some crops. Quest completed. The tower manager actually thanks him for his kindness and grumbles, "Fine, take this. Se-Jun civilsit." The tower itself is thanking him now. How satisfying is that? Then the system deadpans that yes, he did just act like a total pushover. He's not sure how to feel about that. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the tower, that scammer goblin Scarum is fuming. Why hasn't that cat come back yet? His crew reminds him. The cat's that pushover who bought all his junk items last time. Tricked into it easy. So why's the boss suddenly hunting for him? Scarum explains. The cat blew all his money on those goods, and even after all this time, he still hasn't crawled back to the merchant guild admitting he couldn't sell them. Are you worried he'll actually show up? One asks. Scarum sighs that being such a good guy, he simply couldn't bring himself to ignore the poor cat. His plan, buy the cat a glass of milk, tip him off about a big opportunity, then generously lend him the money to chase it. What? His crew blinks. The poor cat, Scarum purrs, will have to work himself ragged repaying a loan handed out at brutal interest, an interest he'll never manage to keep up with. In the end, the cat becomes his slave. A lifelong slave, he cackles. His crew is dazzled. Brother Scarum, you're a genius. Shouldn't you go find him fast, though? A pushover like that isn't easy to come by. Scarum waves them off. Plenty of time, boys. No sense chasing your prey recklessly. His crew swoons over how effortlessly cool he is. Feeling thirsty, he suggests they check today's wandering merchant sales ranking, updated right about now. Scarum preens. He's finally cracked the top 1,000. His crew gushes that he's sitting at 99th, while one of them mutters he isn't even ranked at all. Worth it, Scarum chuckles. Selling that stuff to pushovers pays off. Now, he says, let's have a look at the names I'll be beating next. And then his smug grin freezes. How is this happening? He splutters. Isn't that the cat? One of them says. But his ranking, there's no way he could have sold those items. What on earth are you doing, Theo? Back at the farm, the cat comes bounding in. I'm back, Naya. Se-Jun rounds on him. Where have you been? Theo cringes and swears next time he'll come straight home instead of running off to play on another floor. Playing? For how many days? Se-Jun asks. For days, Naya, Theo admits. Se-Jun does the math. Theo said he needed at least 10 days just to round-trip the 30th floor, yet he still had 4 spare days to goof off after selling out. It hits him. He'd figured selling everything would take days, but if the cat was back inside 14 days with time to spare, the whole stock must have sold out the moment he arrived. Fixing him with a look, Se-Jun offers a deal. If Theo would rather not meet the scary side of the boss, maybe he'd better spill the details. Thank you. Oh, okay, Naya. The cat squeaks. After laying it all out, Theo finishes. That's what happened, Naya. So you're telling me? Se-Jun says slowly, you barely said a word, and the hunters bought the entire lot? That's what happened, Naya. Theo nods, handing over 50 tower coins. Se-Jun peels off an incentive of 2 tower coins. Good work, employee Theo. Huh. The cat blinks. Wasn't I sales cat Theo the resourceful? You just got demoted. Se-Jun says flatly. What kind of sales cat vanishes to play for 4 days? Work hard next time, and you'll be reinstated, with the cut bumped to 5%. Understood, Naya. Theo vows to earn his title back. By the way, Se-Jun asks, what's with the new accent? Humans seem to like this side of me more, Naya. Theo explains. So he's decided to live this way from now on. Se-Jun cleans to himself. Soon enough, everyone's going to know his name. What do you mean, Naya? Howats? Se-Jun explains the farmer's name is stamped right on the cherry tomato's stats. So before long, everyone will know he's the one who grew that tomato. Theo's face goes stiff. Because Theo knows the truth. I am in trouble, Naya. There's a system that forcibly hides the origin of a beginner merchant's goods, meant to stop wealthy merchant from poaching in newcomer suppliers. Since Theo is still a beginner, Se-Jun's name as the cultivator has been blanked out entirely. If the boss finds out, Theo panics, he'll be furious. Forget employee, forget intern, I might get busted all the way down to part-timer Naya. What's wrong? Se-Jun asks. And nothing's wrong, Naya. Theo blurts. Hand me the cherry tomatoes, I'll head out right now. So soon? Se-Jun says, rest a few days first, you've still got your weekly pay coming. I'll just get to work, Naya. So busy today. Theo babbles, desperate to change the subject. Inwardly, the cat resolves he has to lift that name-hiding restriction fast, and there's only one way. He needs to hit 1,000 tower coins and climb to mid-level wandering merchant. Naya. Se-Jun watches him scurry off, wondering if the cat's finally starting to believe in him. The rabbit chirps beside him, and the day rolls on. Out in the wider tower, word of the cherry tomatoes had spread. A raider named Gao was gushing that the magical fruit had every one of his friends jealous, and now his daughter, who was always fighting her diet, actually told her dad she loved him. Leader Dongshik could hardly believe it. His daughter, cranky every single day from dieting, had finally said the words he'd been waiting to hear. He'd only bought 20 pieces last time and left the rest for his team, never guessing she'd love them this much. They were the very same cherry tomatoes that wandering merchant cat had been selling. Another raider chimed in that he'd given the tomatoes to a girl he'd been seeing, and now the two of them were dating. Whoa, really? Dongshik had heard enough. This couldn't go on, he declared, and called his whole team to attention. Summon the rest, he ordered. They were heading to the 38th floor right now. To his shock, his team had already assembled, Jessica and all the other members standing ready before he'd even finished speaking. They'd even prepared the tower coins to buy cherry tomat. For the expedition, they insisted, more than ready to go slay the spider monster. Dongshik steeled himself. He would get that magical cherry tomato and become a great dad, no matter what it took. Down at the merchant stall, a customer confirmed the price was 0.05 tower coin per piece. Stop right there, human, the cat cut in. Actually, the price had already gone up, Naya. The commotion drew a bigger customer, and the cat's helper nervously explained that the magical cherry tomato had risen in price. How much, the man asked. 0.07 tower coins, came the answer. Is that so? The man shrugged. Then give me 200 pieces. Nia. After all, he reasoned, it'd be strange if such a great item stayed cheap, and if he didn't by now, he might never get the chance again. The stall erupted. 200 for me. Give me 500 pieces. The merchant cat could hardly contain himself, purring that he'd found himself a crowd of regular customers. At this rate, he'd gather 1,000 tower coins in no time, Naya. His dream was to become a mid-level merchant, uncover the name of his vendor, and rise back up to a true sales cat. Just then, a small voice interrupted. Excuse me. Hello, Mr. Cat, a little girl called out. Nia. His name wasn't Mr. Cat, he corrected. It was Theo. The girl apologized and introduced herself as Suha. By the way, what did she mean when she said he looked alike? Theo wondered. Suha explained he looked just like a cat she once knew. She must be mistaken, Theo sniffed, since he was the only handsome cat in the world, and a busy one at that. Wait a minute, Theo, she pleaded. Do you want to eat? Churu, she offered, holding out one of the famous cat snacks. Churu? What was that? Theo scoffed, insisting he ate nothing but grilled fish. One taste, and he froze. It smelled like fish, yet somehow tasted nutty, and it melted right in his mouth. What was this flavor, Naya? He'd already devoured the whole thing. Do you have more, Naya? The girls had plenty in all sorts of different flavors. Give me more, he begged. Sure, they laughed, if he'd take a photo with them. A photo? Fine, but they had to give it all to him, Naya. It was the first time anyone had brought cat snacks into the tower. He's cuter than they said. The girls giggled, asking if she'd come see him again, delighted to watch her smile like that. Yeah, Suha beamed. Of course she would. Back on the farm floor, Se-Jun was running the black rabbit through swimming lessons, coaxing it to relax and stretch the green onion tube forward. You're doing such a nice job, he cheered. For safety, he'd temporarily blocked the hole the fish came from, though he'd checked it several times and still felt uneasy. All right, he said, now let's try swimming without the tube. It was a huge improvement over the time the rabbit nearly drowned, leaping into the water out of sheer joy after leveling up. He'd been terrified the piranhas would eat it that day. Just remembering it made his heart skip a beat. After all that water play, Se-Jun wanted something sweet. Let's see, where's the honey? He muttered, digging through his stores. Oh, empty. It seemed he'd already eaten every last drop of the honey he'd collected last time. That got him thinking. The poison bee hadn't come out since she moved a few days ago. Had something happened? He hadn't checked on her in so long, and the number of baby bees seemed to have grown a lot. Were these all the poison bees' children? He hadn't even noticed them. It had been ages since he'd seen her, he realized. He really ought to go congratulate her. But he couldn't just visit empty-handed. He needed a gift first. Gift in hand, he strolled over and called out. Hey, poison bee, could you come outside for a moment? He asked cheerfully. He'd brought her a little housewarming present, he explained. But the bees swarmed up in alarm. Oh, what were they planning to do? Don't do this, he pleaded. They weren't the enemy. Black Rabbit, don't fight them, he shouted, trying to hold everyone back before things turned ugly. Then something huge emerged, and Se-Jun's breath caught. Hey, are you perhaps? There she was, the queen poisonous honeybee, transformed and grown far beyond what he remembered. Was this really the same little poison bee he used to know? Whatever she'd become, his quiet farm floor had just gotten a whole lot bigger. Se-Jun sized up the new arrivals. Poison bees, insect-type tower monsters that hunt their prey with venom. That was about all he knew about them. Nothing in the tower manager's guidebook covered a situation quite like this one. Still, it didn't seem dangerous, so he decided to just keep an eye on them for now and ask Grandpa about it later. Besides, he figured, even the tricky problems always turned out to have a solution eventually. One little bee buzzed up to him, and he squinted. Hey, are you the poison bee, that tiny, cute thing from before? Their whole look had changed so much he barely recognized them. The bee just chirped a proud little bee-eye. It all went back to the day she first ate the nectar from Se-Jun's cave. Every time she fed on that nectar, her body gave off a stronger scent, and she grew a little heavier. It made the queen bee wary of her, though she soon understood exactly why the queen's attitude had turned. The reason was simple. She had become capable of laying eggs herself. That was the moment the poison bee decided to strike out on her own. She built her hive inside Se-Jun's cave, the safest place she could imagine. Then, beside her new hive, she endured wave after wave of painful transformations. Se-Jun could only offer his congratulations. "You've become a queen honeybee," he said, even if the timing's a little awkward. And to mark the occasion, he held out a present for her. A whole queen honeybee, he thought, watching the swarm gather. "Honestly, I'm not sure this is a good idea." The baby bees mobbed him affectionately, and he laughed. "Haha, I like you guys too." A few days later, the little farmhands came shrieking, "Pee-pee, Pipe." Something had them worked up. He'd hoped to sleep quietly through the blue moon this time, but the rabbits wouldn't let it go. Then he saw it, a carrot swollen with the energy of the blue moon. He'd thought it was too small to change, but no complaints if it meant an early harvest. "So that's why you punks were rushing me." He grinned. "All right, let's pull it out." Out came an agility carrot the size of a tumbler, and the rabbit's eyes went wide. The system chimed in. Eaten, it would permanently raise agility by 0.05, an E+ rank crop with a 45-day shelf life. His harvest proficiency and job experience shot up all at once. An E+ crop, he realized. So harvesting better crops like this meant not just 50, but 70 experience points a pull. "Right, this one isn't mine," he said, handing it over. "Thank you for your hard work. Please keep helping me." "Good work, Sickle Rabbit." He cheered as the crop was sliced into perfectly equal pieces. "What a performance, Sickle Chef." This time around, the blue moon had also produced 5 plump cherry tomatoes. The tower manager, meanwhile, kept dangling a reward, saying he'd think about giving Se-Jun a skill in a little while. "What do you mean, you'll think about whether you can give it?" Just then Theo, the merchant cat, arrived in a panic. "Mr. Se-Jun, please tell the poison bees to stop attacking me, Naya." Theo hadn't been around when the baby poison bees were born, so to them he was a stranger, maybe even an enemy. Se-Jun stepped in a vouch for him. "He's family. Guys, look, Theo isn't an enemy." "It tickles, Naya," the cat squirmed. "Outku, Yua Fua," Se-Jun sniffled. "Thank you, brother Se-Jun, Naya," said Theo. "Brother?" Se-Jun raised an eyebrow. "You're just an employee. How dare you address me like we're equals?" "Ack, it hurts, Naya. I'm sorry. But you said we're family, Naya." "Employee Theo, let's settle the accounts first," he said. "Hand over the money from the cherry tomato sales." "Here, Naya. 75 tower coins in total." "You've worked hard, Theo." And there was more. "Ho-ho and Naya. Da-da. How poop fat. Ooh." "The humans have been dying to buy the cherry tomatoes, so I charged an extra 0.02 tower coin per piece. Naya. You must be impressed, right, Naya?" "I did great. Can I become Sales Cat Theo now, Naya?" "Here's your incentive. Good work, Employee Theo." "Nia. Can't I get a better title? Why am I still not the Sales Cat, Naya?" "You're still far from it. Work harder," Se-Jun told him. Little did Theo know, Se-Jun had already caught on. "Ho-ho, actually I knew all along." Even Grandpa was pleased. "Tower manager, you're quite useful. I noticed the cat is squeezing out more money per piece. For such intel, I'll give you another blue moon crop." Then Se-Jun spotted something new. "Theo, what's that?" "This? It's churro, Naya. I got it from a human after taking a picture with her. This one's chicken flavor, but salmon is the best, Naya." A human gave those to him? The thought stuck in Se-Jun's mind. There were only 2 ways, he knew, for things from outside to enter the tower. The first was vanishing, how he himself had arrived. Newcomers bring whatever they're holding, summoned to the first floor, where those items become goods for trade as they climb. The second way was an awakened hunter carrying an item in. They can leave with anything, but bring in only about a kilogram of outside goods. Usually the things hunters carry inside are simple, everyday items. Things like the hunter phone, a smartphone with solar charging built for the tower's endless sun, plus hunter rations and instant food to eat while climbing. So a hunter was hauling in something as unnecessary as churro just to meet a cat. Huh? Wait, in that case. Something clicked. Ho ho, I'm such a genius, he beamed. It just hit me. A brand new business idea. Do you want to eat this, Naya? Theo offered, blissfully unaware of the scheme, now taking shape. Se-Jun leaned back with a grin, feeling every inch the genius. A brand new business idea had just crossed his mind. But first, there was a small matter of discipline to settle. He turned to Theo, the merchant cat, and asked, sweetly, whether he wanted to eat this. Then came the verdict. He was confiscating Theo's churu, and the poor cat could only wail his outrage. Theo scrabbled to get it back, protesting that he had earned that treat fair and square, snapped in a photo with a real human. That was exactly the point, Se-Jun reminded him. Theo had made a deal and posed for that picture. And special condition number 3 was clear. Without Se-Jun's permission, Theo couldn't take on additional clients. This was a serious breach of contract. Theo swore, wide-eyed, that he'd had no idea. Rather than dwell on the punishment, Se-Jun steered the talk toward new clients and gently demoted him back to plain old sales cat Theo, much to the cat's dismay. But there was a carrot too. Do well in future trades, Se-Jun promised, and he could earn the title sales cat Theo for multiple hours. For now, 1 hour. Theo agreed at once. So Se-Jun laid out the royal treatment, inviting the cat to sit in the place of honor as Sir Sales Cat Theo. Sprawled out with his churu, Theo declared this the best feeling in the entire world. Emboldened, he pushed his luck and asked for grilled fish too, and his obliging host promised to bring it right away. Then Se-Jun asked the question that had been nagging at him. How could Theo reach him without ever fighting a single monster? The answer was his wandering merchant license. Se-Jun had never heard of such a thing. Theo showed off the badge that marked him as a wandering merchant, explaining he paid a steep annual fee to the Merchants Association to keep it. The higher the level, the more it cost, but the more perks it unlocked. Best of all, monsters simply didn't attack a wandering merchant. That immunity was one of the trade's great specialties. C'est mein triste. If that were true, could Theo bring hunters up to this floor? No, Theo said. The protection covered merchants alone, and hunters would still be attacked. And there was an exclusive route, the merchant passageway, open only to those who held a license. Without that shortcut, Theo added, there was no way he could have traveled here from the 38th floor in just 5 days. Curious, Se-Jun asked what floor this actually was. Theo answered without a second thought, the 99th. The word landed like a hammer. The 99th floor, Theo repeated, surprised Se-Jun hadn't known where he'd been living all this time. It all clicked, and it clicked wrong. Because Theo made his round trips in about 10 days, Se-Jun had assumed this place sat just a few floors above the 38th. He had been catastrophically mistaken. Knowing the number changed nothing about the distance, and the truth crushed him. Theo cried out and shook him, begging Mr. Se-Jun to wake up. The reality was brutal. The hunters outside had only just begun climbing the 40th floor. The 99th was a world away, and Se-Jun wondered if he should simply give up on ever leaving the tower. Life, however, went on. Theo bossily demanded his fish be grilled properly this time, until Se-Jun cheerfully informed him his 1 hour, as Sir Sales Cat, was up. Elsewhere in the tower, a party of hunters was in dire straits, out of potions, low on food, too many monsters between them and safety to carry their wounded home. Just as they cursed their fate, a voice cut in. It seemed, the newcomer said, that they could use a little help. The hunters recognized him instantly. The legendary wandering merchant and tower farmer, Park Se-Jun, with his orange mascot cat in tow. His story, it turned out, had already spread everywhere. Later, an idea took root. Se-Jun asked Theo whether he too could become a wandering merchant. Theo shot it down flat. Only creatures born inside the tower could hold a license, and he seemed baffled Se-Jun didn't already know. No matter how appealing the plan sounded, Theo insisted he'd have to give it up. Se-Jun could only sputter in protest. Alone with his frustration, Se-Jun raged at this damn tower and everything it kept denying him. His shouting startled Theo, who peeked out complaining that he'd been scared half to death by all the yelling. But the storm passed. Se-Jun reminded himself that nothing had really changed, and that he'd known he was signing up for hardship the moment he entered the tower. Staying angry would only be his own loss. If he couldn't get out, then he'd resolved to do the one thing left to him: live every single moment to the fullest. Far away in the outside world, a very different scene was unfolding. Someone examined a mysterious item lately grown popular among the hunters. It had belonged to a brother in the Phoenix Guild, who claimed he'd bought it off a wandering merchant he happened to cross paths with. A woman named Jenny couldn't read its hidden status window herself, but the man across from her could, and she asked him to look. He scoffed at what he saw, a crappy little item, and wondered aloud whether Michael McLaren, the vice president of Gagel who commanded 39% of the global food market, had lost his business sense entirely. Jenny's reply carried a quiet warning. Even a company CEO, she suggested, should think hard before opening his mouth so carelessly. Her researchers had failed to extract the compound from that tower-grown item, she admitted. Yet even the little data they'd gathered was beyond anything they had imagined. The vice president pressed her. Why show him this at all? Wasn't a business she could easily monopolize alone? Jenny's answer was pointed. All she needed from him was his previously failed tower farming project. He was stunned that she knew about it all, and she only laughed. Then she twisted the knife with a smile, asking whether he ought to reclaim the trust of his father, the current president of Gagel. The board, she noted, would soon elect a new chairman on behalf of the ailing one, an opening a disgraced heir couldn't afford to ignore. And to seal the pitch, she held up the prize itself. Didn't this cherry tomato, she asked, look absolutely appetizing? One bite was all it took. The vice president's eyes went wide, the flesh impossibly sweet, unbelievably delicious. And just like that, corporate empires were laughing over a single crop grown on a lonely cave floor, 99 stories deep. Back home, unaware his tomatoes were shaking the outside world, Se-Jun was fending off Theo, who wanted seconds. If it was that delicious, he grumbled, the cat could march into the tower and buy it himself. Se-Jun still had no idea what was coming, but a cozy little farm on the 99th floor had just caught the eye of the most powerful people on Earth. That's where part 1 ends, and part 2 is where everything changes. So make sure you're subscribed before you miss it.